Yeah.
All right. So this week we've been speaking with a few business owners, Ecom business owners, and a lot of the time the question's been coming up about how you change and how we've changed as business owners, on our journey in the last sort of 10 years. And, I feel personally that a lot has changed. But from the beginning, if I sort of recall back, there were definitely some fundamentals that we had learnt previously that obviously helped us to jump out of our corporate jobs and into entrepreneurship, into eComm, that have kind of carried through to this day. And you're obviously learning all the way through. But, probably the main thing for me personally is around the confidence and the, I guess, the grit in starting your own business and seeing it through. But it's really easy for people to get disgruntled or frustrated or lose themselves in irrelevant details that I guess stops them from progressing, and that can lead them to obviously finishing up or not pursuing their dream, or at least their initial intent. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts, I guess, on how you sort of have, what you think of yourself and ourselves really in starting Carmack, and all the way through how we've changed as people, I guess, and as business owners, and how that's got to this point, sort of 10 years on our journey. I mean, what do you reckon about, or I guess originally how you started as a person, midway through, and then now when a lot of people look at us and say, wow, what great success. But, what do you think sort of been the biggest change for you or us as business owners?
Yeah. Well, I mean, initially, as you kind of said, you have to have that the grit and determination in the outset, in conjunction with a clear goal in mind of where you're heading, and just sort of get down and do the work. But as a business progresses, you kind of have to move away from doing everything yourself to then outsourcing and managing people, which is another skill sort of in and of itself. So I would say initially we were doing everything ourselves, which is difficult, but it's also kind of easier in a way because you have control from end to end, and which is really important in the outset, but it's obviously not scalable. So it's difficult then transitioning across to train people and build systems and have equipment to then reach demand or create the supply that you need, and then start to manage those people. So that's probably the main difference, but the core principles of the business are the same, and principles around how we operate. It's just that the actual tasks are different. And early on, it's more sort of dynamic problem solving, quick turnaround, a lot of iterations, flexibility, problem solving. And then sort of a decade later, it's less iteration, and it's harder to change things because there's more people in the process now. There's more equipment, there's more factors, so it becomes more, a lot more focus on planning. But you still want to be a bit creative as well. So it's trying to find that creative outlet relative to keeping the show on the road, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's so super important to keep focused on moving forward and having that creativity, and especially when you think things are going well, you're bound to be shaken in some way, or the spot fires to be put out. I mean, from a call it a mental state perspective, especially starting out, it's very common for people to be feeling just super uncertain, and that kind of can undermine what you're trying to do. I sort of recall when we started, me personally, I personally felt that we were young enough and naive enough to kind of almost skip that step. We had, I suppose, fortunately some security around that. We had been working in corporate for a few years and had partners who were sort of supporting us financially for at least a little bit of time. But mentally, as I say, you can certainly undermine yourself and just create this massive void of doubt, which can crush people. But for us, I think what really pushed us was probably early wins that said there's actually validity in this business. And then you just, as your business gets stronger, like your head just gets so much stronger, you know. Like I often say to people, and we say to clients, that there's really two motivators for change. One is that you're so fed up and disgruntled with your situation that you want to make a change for the better. And the other is the carrot. So really the carrot or the stick, but you see a life, you know, better for yourself. So I suppose for me and for us, we had tried corporate, we had tried that, and we just, no matter what, pretty much realized we just didn't want to do that or come back to it. So that was enough to motivate us and keep us strong enough, I suppose. Is that sort of how you felt as well?
Yeah, I would agree. I think there was two, as you say, there was two clear things. One was that we're not going back to corporate, so like that bridge was burnt. And then with the business, that was around, we were super passionate about the juice, but it wasn't the first business we tried coming out of corporate. And I think it's important to recognize that you need to balance and match the passion for business success with the validity of the business idea in and of itself. I mean, as you say, if you're going to test the market, have a win, take the next step, test the market, have a win, take the next step, and almost be prepared at any point to pull the pin on it if you're not satisfied that it's got the capacity to get it to where you need it to go to fund or to do the lifestyle that you want to do. So that's where it can become a bit difficult, where people keep pushing maybe a business idea that's the wrong time or the wrong market or whatever, because they want the lifestyle of a business owner, but they're not necessarily linked. I mean, you just maybe, you know, push it for a while, but maybe you're going to have to try a different business or just try going at the market a different way. But yeah, as you say, you're right. There's two things. I mean, we were motivated to run our own business, so it didn't really matter what it was. We just we tested the market and made sure that this was the right one. But yeah, the first few years, I would say the first 4 years even, were still in a test phase. Like we knew that the market was giving us positive feedback, but it's not stable. Whereas now it's probably a bit more stable. So a decade later. So the first 4 years, you're still iterating and testing and sussing out seasonal conditions, you know, all that kind of stuff. What equipment you need, blah, blah, blah. So, and I think also, like for me personally, I think the last couple of years, as the business has been more of a management style now, as opposed to the creative side, is that actually recognizing that I am probably more of a creative than I originally thought. So I actually missed that creative part, which we had for the first 5 years, and then the last 5 years it hasn't been there as much. So trying to balance, get more, bring some creativity back into the business or the lifestyle, and then coupling that with strategy and planning and more logic stuff, I guess. So keeping the balance, not going too creative, and also not going too corporate again.
Yeah, that's kind of the irony, isn't it? And I remember we spoke about that within the first few months, and we were setting up spreadsheets and stuff like that, doing our research, due diligence. We're like, oh, not bloody more spreadsheets, you know. But it's kind of the irony, especially when you get to a level that it's at now, where the wheels are bigger, and it is a bit harder to move and pivot the machine. But yeah, I mean, so what have we sort of done, or what have you sort of done over the last few years to get that creative outlet, I guess? Like what has substituted, you know, I guess, innovation and coming up with cleanse packs and new formulas and stuff like that to finding a winning formula, really, that is seasonal, that people come back to and whatever. Where do you think that energy has gone to? Did you personally find, you know, excitement, enthusiasm building teams and that sort of thing, or what? Like, where did you sort of find the enjoyment?
Not really. Not really. I think actually, honestly, it was just actually finding stuff outside the business that satisfied that creative requirement, which essentially de-risks the business, which doesn't require to take that much risk anymore, because being creative to be profitable is inherently risky because you don't really know what you're doing, in the pure creative sense of it. So I just try and sort of almost do different things for the creativity side. It's just not to get caught up in the day-to-day grind of, like team meeting, and then now we're doing accounting and supplier meetings and all of this kind of very logical stuff to put a very hard time limit on how much time you spend on that stuff in the business, and then either having creativity outside the business or within the business. But for our product, there's not too much creativity stuff we can do anymore, really. It's pretty much sort of running itself, which is good. So we could do other stuff. I don't know, different things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you can look at creativity, I suppose, in the marketing aspect, which is obviously what I take care of and things like that. And you've always been a builder as such, and so expanding the kitchen and getting big ass machines from the US and stuff like that's been always exciting, and China and whatnot.
That's true. Actually, getting into machinery and stuff like automated filling machines and capping machines, and probably expressing the creativity through the automation. That is fun. Yeah, that is good, but not product side though, because like if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing. Like the product is what it is. It's inherently simple and effective. But the automation stuff has been good. But again, you get to a certain point where there's only so many bottling machines you can research, I suppose.
Someone once told us, the owner of Milk Chocolate, Kirill, he once told us there's a machine for everything. I remember him saying that, and it's definitely finding that out. So I guess going back to the original point of this discussion, at least, like looking back at 26-year-old Sam versus 36-year-old Sam, like how do you sort of see the differences there with, well, just with how you are? I mean, do you think there is a huge difference?
Not really. I actually thought I was still like 33. No, not really. I think that's sort of the beauty of being a business owner, is that you're inherently pursuing your own passion. So you're kind of always yourself. I mean, that's the kind of the difficult part of it. It's difficult because it's hard being yourself, and it's rewarding because you are being yourself. So we've always just been us, and we've always done what we wanted to do. And sometimes that's hard, and sometimes that's that point where what you're kind of getting at, where it's it becomes a grind, and it's not always easy. In fact, most of the time it's a lot harder. But the reward of that is that you just always, or more so, aligned with your true personality because you're doing your thing. So I think in terms of the only difference between 10 years ago really is that the business is actually, I would say, successful now. Whereas 10 years ago, it was an idea, and we were creating it and, nurturing it and ensuring that it was heading the right way. And now it's kind of a proven concept. So it's probably maybe a bit more confident now in our ideas, but also, I suppose, not humbled by the experience, but also there's only so much stuff you can control. Like a lot of the stuff, like we controlled as much as we could, but a lot of it is, how much of it was luck, market conditions. A lot of stuff was difficult to predict. So being maybe more flexible and dynamic now than I was back then, because we were very, 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 very focused on what we were trying to achieve. So yeah, but not much has changed really. I mean, I still like to build things and create things.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe more around sort of like business risk analysis, actually, like what we've been talking about with lifetime value of clients and stuff, like looking at that more holistically, long-term conceptualizing. Like early days, we would very, very rarely refund a client, mainly because we would never make a mistake. And that's just a fact. Like we would never make a mistake. But at a certain point, the scale becomes too large. You're sending out 10x, 15x the volume. You're going to make a mistake and you're going to run into problems. So factoring in downside risk is something we have to do. But early days, you don't really think about it. So that's probably the change. Maybe, yeah, longer term, more holistic risk analysis. Yeah, that's probably one main business thing.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes complete sense. And I mean, the amount of businesses that we speak to and business owners that we speak to and those that come to us for advice to, ask us questions about our experience, like it's amazing the clarity that you can just reel off, like what either from experience or seeing it before, what you can actually like assess the situation. That's sort of what I've found comes really intuitively after all that time. And certainly around, the age old, like just test things out. Like people think that, like I would say that, or we say that as almost like a shortcut answer, or like, to just put a stop to the question. But it's really, what works for our business could work for yours, but you have to test it. The customer or the market's actually going to tell you that. And we always say time and time again that like the idea and the execution are two different things. Like you can have the worst idea or a bad idea and execute it really well and that be successful, and vice versa. You can have the best idea and execute it badly and no one ever sees it, or it runs its course. But certainly, 10 years on, for me, it's more like the confidence to do it again and just the absolute conviction, as we say, from the corporate, like you'd never go back to that. But the confidence to be like, yeah, we could start something. Or you can really quickly assess risks, as you say, or assess business ideas, even, friends or ideas that we kick along. It's really easy to make decisions, I guess, quicker, based off almost in your head calculations a lot of the time.
Yeah, true. I think the one thing which has been reiterated is the, like you say about testing stuff, like a lot of our initial assumptions were actually proven to be the total opposite. Like cleansing over the weekend, no one really does it. They do it at the start of the week. Certain seasons are more busy than other seasons. And like more specifically, we got a new glass bottle, and I thought clients would notice it or be concerned, and no one actually even noticed the packaging had changed.
Or they looked upon it favorably because it tasted better.
Yeah. And some things just happen out of necessity with supply chain issues and stuff like that. So it is quite interesting what the market will tolerate and then what it won't, and just keep sort of testing that and asking questions, because it's always surprising what comes from that, really.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. And I like, just to add to that, like any clients that we work with in a marketing aspect, like that's, as I say, generally our response, test the market. And I say that so often, we hypothesize to that we think will work the best, it's normally something else, and it surprises you every time. And so I guess that just reiterates the fact that you just have to keep trying things and finding solutions that work, and then you just get confidence and you make decisions quicker and you can read the data quicker, and it kind of goes from there. You just keep going. I mean, we by no means know everything about everything, and we never will. And it's probably with that attitude that you are going to be successful. You never think you've made it, or never think you have all the answers. But yeah, as I say, that learning, sees us through, I guess. And that's right.
I mean, if anything, you realize how much you don't know, and then it's a little bit more concerning, because initially, I think we were conscious of it, like you said. It's like we knew that we didn't know enough, so you kind of have to be naive enough to have a go at running your own business, because if you knew how hard it was, you wouldn't do it. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. So if anything, 10 years later, you know you know enough to realize you don't know enough. But when you start out, you don't want to know how hard it is because, that's the hard work is not reflected in the reward. Like 10 years later, you'll do anything to get here. And we did, but at the time, you don't really think about it like that. So it is hard work, but yeah, the reward is sort of, it's definitely not infinitely better, but it is certainly, what do they say, asymmetrical upside.
Yeah, absolutely. That hockey stick growth, over time, the compounding effect. And for us, for me personally anyway, a daily reward was not having to go into an office and be in a place I didn't want to be. And so, I definitely always say and still say that, like, I never had a shit day working myself. You have challenging days, but like, never had a shit day as in like, I hate what I'm doing. Which is, the biggest payoff, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, let's wrap it up there and we can have another chat soon about some other things. But yeah, good to reflect and good to have a chat about it, man.
Yeah, no, sounds good, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, 10 years goes fast.
Fast and slow at the same time. All right, mate. Good work.
All right. See you, mate.